Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting and inspiring episode of Life in Style with Zara on Dash Radio and North America's #1 South Asian radio station, Ruckus Avenue Radio. Today, I'm really excited and honored to welcome a dear friend. We met last in Vancouver, Canada, and before that, we were acquainted while we were traveling across Uzbekistan during World Influencers Congress. She is full of energy, very highly energetic. Believe it or not, at a very young age, she has won 10 Heartland Emmy Awards. She's a travel and video journalist. You can see her work on USA Today, CNN Airport, PBS, Lonely Planet, you name it, she's been there. And of course, on her own video log, Traveling Jules, I'm talking about none other than Juliana Broste. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Zara, for having me. What a beautiful introduction. You've been doing your homework.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, your story is an amazing story, Juliana. And to be so young, to have traveled the world, all over the world, it's something that, when you read it, when you go through your website, you're like, she must be like at least in her 50s, but I know you're around my age group. So I want to get to the beginning. We're going to backtrack. And from the beginning, where did this travel bug get started from? Did you always know that you were going to be a travel journalist and you're going to travel the world and document it?
That's such a great question because honestly, I had no idea. Like if you would have asked 15-year-old me, I never would have pictured myself here. I actually wasn't a big traveler through most of my life. My family went on vacations to see family. So I just never really got bitten by the travel bug when I was young. But I think when I was in college, I had a bunch of friends that were all going to study abroad. And I thought, why does everyone want to leave me? I'm in college, like this is the best time of our lives. Why would we go anywhere? And it made me curious. I thought, okay, if everyone wants to go, what do I not know? So I started researching and eventually I took the biggest risk of my life and I decided to study abroad too. So I applied for a scholarship to go study in Sydney, Australia. And after I came back, I was so bitten by the travel bug. And I was so energized by the idea of seeing the world and meeting all these cool people, having incredible experiences, that I feel like the direction of my life and my career really morphed at that point.
Now, when you were studying in school, were you studying journalism? Were you studying broadcasting? Was it anything related to what you are doing today? And how long were you living in Australia for?
Yeah, I started when I was very young. I was always interested in technology and video. Friends of mine had video cameras in middle school, so we would make these really embarrassing, silly home movies. And in high school, I was, the TV anchor, so I got some practice at a young age. But I would have to really credit an internship that I did. When I was 17, I got this incredible work study opportunity for 5 years at the local CBS news station. So it was part of a program called the Emma Bowen Foundation, and they wanted to incorporate more diversity in media, especially at the higher up levels. So not just like the faces you see on TV, but the decision makers. So I got a really interesting start because I had so much experience at a TV news station, and I got to work in all departments. And I realized this is the coolest business ever. Like I love making videos and being creative, being in the field, meeting people, sharing your story. But I realized, you know what? I'm not really a big fan of the news. I mean, it wasn't something that like drew me, and it wasn't just a natural thing where I wanted to talk about politics and really all those hard issues. I wanted to do the fun stories, those features, the people stories. And so it took me a while to figure out how to do video production, but in my way, not in like the way that, it was in a template. Like these are the jobs in the news station. So I fell in love with a lot of jobs at that TV station, but I didn't find like one job that was like the one job I wanted to do. And so somehow in my career, I feel like I've been so lucky to be able to mix and match parts of different jobs and create my own job. So I'm very lucky that I've been successful at building my own career and really building it in the ways that I feel, make me happy. So I'm excited.
And that's really inspiring. So, I mean, of course, your career took you in so many directions, and now you're also a speaker. However, I'm sure to get that experience at 17, is that you were 17 when you were working in TV and CBS. And of course, it makes sense when I go visit your website. You've had so much publicity. You know, every time I'm on social media, you're on CBS, you're here, you're speaking there, you're in the news for this and this and this. And, you know, it's so amazing. And you're also so humble and, you know, really generous with your time. It was so lovely to spend time with you in Vancouver. And we'll get back to what you were doing in Vancouver later. I want to talk a little bit about having a calling, because when I see your passion for traveling and when you're making content, and that was something that was really imminent to me in Uzbekistan, you always had your camera out, you were always filming, you know, your mic was ready to go, and you had a big backpack, and we were going through trains. It was the whole planes, trains, automobiles, you know, and you were just rolling. I'm like, this girl's got some muscles. You know, if you're watching this video or if you're listening right now on radio, Jules carries a big backpack, her suitcase, and her, you know, camera with the tripod. You're ready to roll. Do you feel this calling inside of you to be this? It's almost like this travel journalist, this filmmaker, to share a story. Like, tell me about that, when that came through, because obviously that came through when you were really young, even in high school.
Yeah, it's so funny when you describe me from the outside. I'm like, yeah, that is who I am. I'm not your average storyteller, I would say. I mean, a lot of the other influencers and people that I go on trips with, I notice they don't have the same kit of stuff. And that's okay. I think what's really unique about now is the democracy of storytelling, and the power to tell stories is in your phone. And so everybody can tell stories, which is really exciting and empowering right now. But it's interesting because I started back at a time right at the cusp, I would say, where you really did need to devote your time and energy into the career of being a storyteller, and working in journalism, and just learning the technology and learning the software. And so I think I bring that into my storytelling, is that it's important to me to tell what I think are good stories and stories that are worth watching. So I have a hard time just blabbing on YouTube for an hour just because. Like, I really want to make sure the content that I make is reflective of something that other people should actually spend time watching. And so as much as I love, and a lot of it too is me, I want to just tell my story, right? So I think there's two parts of stories, is like the storyteller and the person who's listening. But I think for sure, like, as everyone now has the content, or has the technology to make stories, we have to also think about the why are we telling stories, and the artful skill set that you learn how to tell stories. Is not something that everyone was born with. We have to learn that, and through practice we learn how to tell stories. So anyway, I think a lot of people pick up their phone and they go, I could tell stories, I'm doing it, and then they realize, like, this is a lot harder than I thought. And then you go through this period of, okay, I made something, it's not so great. Okay, I made something else, it's okay, but it got better. And we go through this period of just, we feel like it's not as good as it could be. And we keep, with hard work and with practice, eventually you get to that point where you're like, this is amazing, right? But it definitely is, it's a learning curve. And a lot of people want those immediate, that immediate success. And you realize, like, you have to give yourself time, and you have to study and give yourself time to practice before you come up with those genius things.
That is so well said. Thank you for saying that. If you're just tuning in right now, we are speaking to Juliana Broste, also known as Traveling Jules. You can find her on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and her website. She's all over, and she produces and creates amazing traveling content. So if you want to get inspired to travel more, maybe create your own content, or just be inspired in general, go check out her website, her YouTube, or Instagram. She's also a public speaker. She's been featured on CNN and many different media publications. I want to talk a little bit about you are, of course, a brand. You're a travel journalist. You have won 10 Heartland Emmy Awards. What has this journey been like you? You know, looking back, you today, what would you say to your younger self, like Juliana at 15?
You know, I am a very hard worker, and I love it. I love what I do, and I could sit at the computer for hours and hours editing. I could be in the field, like you mentioned, in Uzbekistan with heavy camera gear on my back, and just constantly I have that camera in my hand because I really like what I'm doing. But I think there's definitely a point where I learned that I have to figure out how to work smarter and not harder, right? We're all trying to figure that out, how to be more efficient, how to conserve our energy. Um, and, and I think for me, what I would have told myself is that you're going to be fine. Like, you could probably work half as hard and still come out with something amazing, but I just have very high standards for myself. And so it's just that conversation internally that I have to remind myself that 50% of what I let out is probably good enough, but it's just my internal drive that like says, wouldn't you want to do that one more time, or couldn't you go back and smooth this part out? And then I get up to that 80%, 90%, get it out like closer to that level that you expected. So it's just interesting trying to manage expectations. Um, and so, yeah, I definitely want to talk to myself and say, hey, you young girl, it's going to be fine. You don't have to, you don't have to work quite as hard, and you can still be a success.
And of course, that hard work has paid off, you know, with all the publicity, the press, and of course, the awards. You know, you're doing fantastic. What is it like when you're invited to speak at these places? Of course, I heard you speak and you shared your story at the World Influencers Congress in Uzbekistan, but that's not the only place you've been invited to. You're invited as a travel journalist, you're invited as an inspirational speaker. Do your nerves ever kick in? Do you have a very clear idea of what exactly you're going to say, or you just show up and you're like, okay, this is the general topic and I'm just going to open up?
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't know that, being a speaker was a job, right? Or a thing that you could do when I was younger. And I've kind of just, I don't know, I've been tippy-toeing here and there, and I keep finding it appear in different parts of my career, but I really love it. When I was young, I was a dance teacher. I loved dancing, and so I figured out a way to make money at it, and it was teaching dance. And then not long after that, I thought, ooh, I'd love to move to Vail, Colorado and be a snowboard instructor. That sounds like a really cool thing to do. And I was not a great snowboarder at the time, but I was able to somehow, present some ideas as a teacher. And they said, okay, we're going to teach her how to snowboard and we'll hire her as an instructor. And so I was able to make that a career. I'm actually still teaching very part-time. So, teaching snowboarding is also a career that I didn't know was like a real job, but I loved it. I loved it because I got to meet people from around the world, and they would come to me and I got to be the host and teach them about the mountain and why the sport is so much fun, and get their bodies moving. And just, I had some really great connections with people on the ski slopes. So I was absolutely addicted to just that way of sharing something as a speaker and as a teacher. And so I figured out in different ways that would kind of lead me down a path. I mean, I taught English in Korea. Once I studied abroad in Australia, I got addicted, and I thought, what can I do to travel more? And I didn't have a ton of money. I didn't just have opportunities knocking at my door to travel, but I thought, okay, I heard about these jobs teaching English. So I figured out a way to still travel and have experiences, but also teach. I actually found this is funny, it's just sitting here on my desk, a old book on how, like, I was trying to learn Korean while I was teaching English. So it was interesting just realizing, like, I found this book like this weekend, and I realized maybe I should try to learn again.
That's a great idea. And talking about Korea, you know, I remember when you were up on stage in Tashkent, you know, for World Influencers Congress, and I believe the president's wife came and gave a speech, and a lot of government officials from Uzbekistan were there, with 100 influencers and journalists from around the world, and a lot of local media. And I remember when you were sharing your story, because I still have it on my phone, and I remember just being really touched by your story. And you mentioned about being adopted, and you were adopted when you were only 3 months old, and you were born in Korea. Can you can you tell us a little bit more about your story and how that has been for you? You know, being born in Korea, getting adopted, and what life in the U.S. has been for you, and perhaps what challenges you have overcome.
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody looks at me and they expect me to be Korean. And so growing up in the States, so I was adopted from South Korea when I was just 3 months old. So growing up in the States, especially in Colorado, in the area where I grew up, it wasn't specifically very diverse. So I was probably one of three other Asian kids in high school. And my brother, so who was also adopted. So, we were very much like unique, and people would look at us and think we can speak Korean and we can't. And so there was just this level of just understanding, your identity in a different way than I think a lot of people, especially a lot of Asians, they might have like more cultural experience, maybe their first generation or, other like family cultural differences and stuff like that. And for me, I actually just was always confused and curious, like what are people looking for when they think I'm Korean? There was a lady who came up to me and was just like, 안녕하세요, she wants to bond with me. And I'm like, I don't know why she feels like a kinship, because I just didn't get it. And so after spending 4 summers teaching English in Korea and just getting to understand the culture, I really have a different sense of what it means to be Korean, and I'm actually really proud of it. So again, being Korean was never like a part of I was never very interested in it when I was younger. And now as an adult, I feel like an exciting amount of understanding, as when I see someone, I know they're Korean. I understand what the faces look like. And I understand that Koreans are very nationalistic, and they like trust each other a lot, as obviously it's like a unique language. So it is special when you see another Korean on the street. So things like that I've learned in like a really unique way, about, what diversity means in a different way. Right. And I remember being on the subway in Korea and just being shocked. Like, everybody here looks like me. And that was just like an epiphany. And then realizing, like, old ladies, they always come over to me on the street and they ask me for directions. And I would be like, I don't know what you're saying. There's this level of like, they just obviously thought they could talk to me, and I don't know the language. So I enjoy being in Korea because I do look like other people, but it's also kind of fun because I feel like a secret spy, because I don't really know what's going on. So it is a really unique experience to travel. Even Zara, being in Uzbekistan, I remember we were with 100 other influencers from all different parts of the world, such interesting people, all these different faces, real diversity there, people from different countries. And I remember feeling like surprised when no reporters wanted to interview me, because they were headed straight at the people who looked like true foreigners. And I thought, interesting. And then what I learned is actually in Korea, because it's Central Asia, people they do a little bit look a little more like me than maybe like a Caucasian foreigner. So I remember just being like surprised to learn that actually there's 10% of the population in Uzbekistan is Korean. And so possibly me taking a photo next to the president, I don't necessarily like ring out as like foreigners are in town. So it's just an interesting experience.
That's too bad. Well, I have photos with you, and we had a wonderful time in Uzbekistan. You know, I got to know you a little bit. I was always watching because I'm like, this girl is in it to win it. You know, she is there to get the shots. Like, I remember when I would be coming out of the airport, or, you know, when we were at the train stations and we would have this big welcoming committee. Now I'm used to like whenever I arrive at airport, where's the welcoming committee? Where are the drums? Where's the big horn that is being blown? You have arrived here, but I'm sorry that you missed out on the interview. I
No,
think,
but that was my experience though, being, of, what people think you are, like the perception, versus like,
but it's true. When you say that, and right away I was like, yes, because you can look Uzbek. Yeah, when I'm looking back now, I'm like, yes, you can totally look, because I was surprised there were some people who looked very Russian Ukrainian mix, and there were some people who looked very Asian mix. And they spoke they're very smart, educated people. They speak many, many different languages. And it was so fascinating and so heartwarming and so heart wrenching to leave that place. I
Yeah, but you're right. Like being in a place like Uzbekistan, like as any ethnicity, you're gonna have a slightly different experience, And I use it to my advantage. Like if I'm in Italy or somewhere with those big cameras, like people don't ask me twice because I'm Asian, they think like, okay, that girl is addicted to cameras, So it's interesting, like the play on just what it means for diversity around the world.
completely, and as a person of color, and especially right now, what's going on in the world, I feel the world needed this wake up call. I was certainly not born in Canada, first generation immigrant. I moved here when I was 17 and, born in Pakistan, and right after, living in Vancouver after 9/11, and then going to the US on a Pakistani passport and going through all the feelings and 2-hour interrogation. And now I'm so grateful to have my Canadian passport, but it's just a piece of paper. I'm the same person. But it's interesting that, what our looks or the color of our skin or the way we look or what city we're born in terms of treatment. But, I am very grateful to be Canadian and to hold that piece of paper today and to have rights, and to be born in a time that we do have rights. I do want to acknowledge you. I feel that, we've had this conversation in Vancouver about you shooting your own content. You are an on camera host and you're editing it yourself, because a lot of people, at least the people that I know, they shoot and then editing goes to third party, or even for photography, editing is going to someone else. Like, you're doing all the work yourself. So of course when you have those Emmy awards, it makes sense. For someone who is just starting out and says that I want to be like traveling Jules, what advice would you give to them?
Like anything, that you learn over time, it seems super crazy complicated when you see dancers on stage in costumes doing like backflips and twists and turns and stuff. And then you have to kind of dial it back and go, okay, I can learn that too, but I have to break it down. So you're right. When I go out there by myself, it is kind of a crazy thing to do everything. And while it's becoming more and more popular because of YouTube and vlogging, I would say learning all the steps of production is not necessarily, the model that we all followed in the business of video production. So definitely, like patting your head and rubbing your belly or something, that's not easy, but you learn one thing at a time. Like you can pat your head, okay, you can rub your belly, and you can do them together, but it takes time to kind of choreograph how it works. So with video, I do this almost every year. I pick one thing that I really want to focus on, and I just study the heck out of that. And then next year, I might focus on a different angle. So for example, I think maybe 1 or 2 years ago, I said I really want to invest more in my on-camera presence, because I learned that by focusing on all this technical stuff, what kind of lens am I using? What kind of aperture, all those like technical things, it made me like focus pretty much zero on like me being on camera. And when you have a crew, you can focus on one thing. So if ever I was hired on a commercial and I was just talent, there was this level of like, oh, that's all I have to do? Okay. So it was really fun, I think, to just learn all the skills separately. And with time, practice a couple of them, as you go out. But certainly nobody needs to go out there and just produce an entire thing all by themselves on your first try, right? So yeah, little steps are the secret. This year I'm really focused on editing because as much as I learned long ago, I'm seeing so many interesting things on TikTok, right? So many like magic tricks just happening in front of your face. And there's always shortcuts, like one letter, one keystroke can change, your workflow. It's just, you save a whole minute right there, and repeatedly you keep saving time. So I actually am enjoying learning some fun editing tricks this year. But yeah, I definitely focus on different areas, and I think slowly I'm figuring out how to like enhance things that I do in different ways.
So tell us about the process of, as per your website, you've literally traveled around the world. You've been everywhere, from what I saw in Asia, Australia, North America. You travel a lot, and you travel for work. For someone listening right now and contemplating either, monetizing their YouTube or even just getting started, what advice would you give to them that you feel that in your years of expertise that you have learned when it comes to monetizing and making money, with traveling, with creating content or getting sponsors? What advice would you give to someone listening right now?
The traveling world is exciting, and it's there's so many things to appreciate when you're out of your home comfort zone, right? And as much as I've been lucky to see different places, to go to Africa or to go to Asia, or explore around, it's really interesting, even right now during these difficult, uncertain times, how much, even being at home, you can have similar discoveries of exoticness. And I mean, it's different, but there's definitely things to explore no matter where you go. It might be a road trip, or it might be seeing a local cafe in your neighborhood that you never tried, and you're just gonna, or maybe you're eating dinner and you're just ordering something different off the menu, right? There's definitely ways to explore, whether you're going very, very far or staying in your own area. But certainly the magic of like where your mindset is, your attitude, like deciding if you're gonna put yourself in a situation where you're going to stay in your normal routine versus trying something new, I think is always our personal battles. And I feel like in all the times in my life that I took these ridiculous risks, like studying abroad, when I had the safe thing, which was being in college, and then I took the risky thing, which was unknown, question mark, question mark, I found this really cool reward. I found an amazing thing that, had I not done that, I don't know what my life would be like now. So I feel like the safe route, we all love it, and I do in so many ways, but there are really interesting rewards for those times where you're willing to take a risk. And the times that you take a risk and it doesn't work out, they're actually really great stories. You learn from your mistakes, you learn, and obviously that's not always, no one wants to fail, but we learn a lot in our failures. And if you don't take the chance, you're missing something, right? So it's okay to fail. And I think that's something that we don't hear enough, is that it's okay to try new things, and it's okay to be uncomfortable, whether that means you're with a group of people you're not familiar with, or you're trying a new item on the menu. But I think there's a lot of different ways to expand your horizon.
That is really well said, and it's a great advice. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. Obviously, you are managing your own time. You are self-employed, you're an entrepreneur, you're a brand, and whether you're giving an interview on television, or you're on a film set for a commercial, or you're giving an inspiring talk, or invited to some travel conference as a speaker and educator, you have to manage your own time while at the same time motivate yourself, inspire yourself. Tell me what you do to keep your energy up, because one of the things that I've learned about you in the little amount of time that I've known you in the last 6 months, or I guess it'll be almost a year in August, you have a very infectious and positive and consistently positive energy. So how do you maintain that?
Oh, you're so sweet. I appreciate that. You know, the secret to happiness, right? Everyone wants that. And I think being able to just ask yourself what makes me happy and prioritize your life and the things like I do that constantly. And even though I think I'm comfortable and I'm happy, I realize there's always things that I'm doing that, are not producing the optimal result. And so I think it's okay, whether you're happy or not, to put down on a piece of paper the things that matter to you and what matters to you more than other things. Because the biggest thing that I've learned and I'm grateful that I have a lot of energy, but I also realize that we all have a limited time on this planet and we all have only so many hours of the day. And so the things that I don't get done always kind of eat away at me at night. And I'm like, oh, I should have done that. I'll do that tomorrow. There's this like nonstop list of things that I want to do. And I think that's true for everybody. And so I think obviously we have to learn how to prioritize and be realistic, what's actually feasible. I think, again, it's attitude, but we can be angry at ourselves every day. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. But oh my gosh, look at all the things that you did do. And so it's really just a matter of changing flipping the picture a little and just really stopping to evaluate, where are we? What are we doing today? How am I using my time? And then, really just deciding, like of all these things, some of them are urgent and you need to do them today or they will disappear or something bad will happen. But then there's also a bunch of things on that list that are actually important. And they might not be like yelling at you, but they are the thing that in the end of the day, you're going to be like, I didn't do that because it was actually important to you. It wasn't urgent. It was like, when I don't get the important things done, I feel bad. So I need to learn how to reorganize the important things above some of the things that are like, oh, I have to answer this email. Oh, I have to call this person back, And I think, I'm not perfect at that, but I think those are the things that help me have better days.
So tell me, what does your normal day look like? Are you an early riser? Do you meditate in the morning? Do you journal? Like, what would you say that you're like, okay, this is something I have to do daily in order to feel accomplished or in order to feel grounded and connected and centered? Because when you have all these emails coming, you have to edit, be in front of the camera, all of this, because director producer hat versus talent hat is very different, and I'm speaking from experience. And when I have a crew and I'm like going from producer director and switching to talent, they're like, or switching from talent to behind the camera, it's an interesting adjustment for them. But for that all to work, I think for me, I need to meditate. I need to do a gratitude list. I do a daily journal. There's certain things and habits that I would call my winning habits. So what would you say your winning habits are?
Oh, I love yours. You actually meditate every day, and I do know you're on
Try.
Instagram.
Meditation, I try. The other ones I do daily.
I see you though. You post about yoga and stuff, and I'm inspired by you all the time. Like, I think you actually have a very good control on balance in life. I think a lot of us, the train kind of runs away. Especially now when we can all schedule our own lives a little more. But yeah, it's a challenge to figure out where does the time go best, right? And I think I'm unique because I hate having a routine. If I have to eat the same thing for breakfast 2 days in a row, I'm like, I can't. So I actually really enjoy the idea of just doing things in different orders or at different times of the day, just changing things up. I like to walk around the neighborhood in different paths so that I always am kind of stimulating my mind. There are things that I do that, like, as far as where do I put my time, I do think you do need to work out, and I think there's something about just walking around, stretching. I actually do belly dance once a week right now. I've been doing it on Zoom, which has been fun. But I think it's important to have something physical that, like, you can just sort of turn off the technology for a little while and do that for a short time, even if it's 10 minutes, whatever. But also, you know, as far as like proportioning the week and the day, I really think it helps to segment things. Like I try not to take calls every day of the week. If I could plan all the calls on like Tuesday afternoons, that means all of Wednesday is out open and free. So, and like you said, producer hat, I might not get dressed and shower on Thursday, let's just say, because on Friday, I'm going to wake up and get cute and wear like a few different outfits and take photos or record stuff for video. Because I like to have talent, Jules. When I'm on camera, I'm in a zone, you know, so I can focus on that. But then on the phone call day, you know, I'm prepared to be doing things every 30 minutes, different group of people on the phone. So yeah, I think separating and like organizing the time of the week really helps me.
What would you say are top three habits that you've cultivated over the years that really help you with your business, with your brand, and everything that you do? Like top three habits that you are like, okay, these are my little secrets.
Ooh, I love that. The first one I'd say is be true to yourself, because anytime you take on a project that you're not that passionate about, you're not that excited about, it's the thing that you're going to procrastinate the worst. So think about what you're actually interested in and really try to do that. Actually, you mentioned branding, and I think something I've learned over the years about building your own brand and also just designing your life is how important it is to really highlight the things that you want to do more of. So if let's say I want to do more public speaking, I'll tell people that I'm the MC of a conference this month because I want people to know the thing that I want to do more. But if I secretly told you, oh, I'm editing this video about education and it's just a paycheck, you know, that doesn't catch more jobs in the direction that I want, you know? So I think definitely like what you think about, what you talk about, will have impact on what opportunities kind of like come your way. Like imagine like you're a magnet and we, you know, whatever I say, we're going to try to get more of. So if I told you that I wanted to be, I wanted to have my own TV show, which is true. I don't have my own TV show yet, but if I keep telling people that, maybe those opportunities will start coming to me versus like explaining, you know, some other goal, right? So I think it's important to just kind of, I don't know, that's my secret. I don't know if I have three. I'll have to keep thinking, but I think there are just so many things that.
Well, branding wise, talking about that, I just want to talk about your room where you're sitting in right now. I love the pink and gray aesthetic, but even on your website, when we go and read your bio, it's like you will see Jules with her pink suitcase. And even I love your photos because that is a branding thing. And I think it takes confidence, and maybe for some people it comes easily, and for me it's taken time to be like, and I feel it's something that's always evolving, the thing of who we are and what we want to show, and show the world that this is who we are. um, I think you've done a great job of branding yourself, of saying that I'm a inspirational as well as a travel speaker. So I see all these different conferences, all these different platforms in different cities you're going and speaking at. And what you mentioned is so true, that highlight what you want to do more of. Like there could be no more truer words, like whether someone wants to do what you're doing right now, or whether they're starting their own business, or whatever area they are in life, you can learn from that. And you mentioned about what you think, the words you speak, it's like a magnet, and I think you are making it come true. Of course, I will keep talking about your Heartland Emmy Awards. I'm like, your 10 awards. I am the one saying this, not her, so I'm doing the bragging for you. And I can say this because we met in Vancouver, and you were surprised to know that I was in Vancouver. And I was surprised to find you here. You were here with Bumble, and you won this big contest out of thousands and thousands of applications to be the Bumble Global Creator Bee, and you were to travel and then that brought you here. Tell me about that experience.
Oh, that's such a great example. Thank you for reminding me. I mean, yeah, everything that we do, if you could picture the goal. And so it's interesting because over my career, I've done some really exciting campaigns and partnerships. Like I got started when I was young. I did this, it was called the Dream Travel Job. And I applied online and interviewed through phone calls and got this job to travel around North America making tour videos for the website. And so that was my first really big ongoing opportunity to be on camera and be the videographer. And it really gave me hope. Like this is a job I could actually do, that's a job. There's a lot of jobs that are not on Craigslist or not on LinkedIn or Monster or whatever, because they don't have a lot of demand for that job. But once you realize it's possible, and especially if you create the job, then it's yours. You don't have to compete against anybody. And so it's interesting because as I had reflected on that Viator Dream Travel Job as one of my favorite travel experiences, it really encouraged me to say, how can I do that more? And what other jobs can I attract in my career? And yeah, just finding brands and partnerships that I felt, I could do more entertaining and inspiring content for. So Visit Colorado, I've worked with Visit Denver. I've worked with a lot of different tourism boards to bring awareness to those areas and show people the fun stuff that you can do. So for me to land that dream job for Bumble as the global connector bee this year, it was huge. No doubt, like the kind of thing that, again, I've kind of skimmed around this world and seen some fun opportunities, but if I could plan something that I want to do that incorporates all those things, it was that. Being single, I love being single. I love being independent, but I realized, wouldn't it be kind of cool to meet someone, right? And so I actually was not a big, like app date I hadn't downloaded all the apps and like used them regularly, but I had downloaded them and deleted them. So I'd made some effort.
You and
And
I
so,
both.
have you done that?
All the time.
Yeah, I mean, I just hadn't given it a real fair shot. And so in one part of my life, I thought this is something I want to bring attention and like focus on, is like my personal life. And then, meanwhile with my career, I thought, I'd love to do more traveling and see the world and do it for a consistent thing and work on one project for a longer time and come out with this like amazing library of fun things to do. So I was very touched that, I was very excited that I found this opportunity, and I was just like over the roof excited when I found out that I was actually like the one that got picked at the end. Me and also there was another girl, so two of us that they loved so much, they picked both of us, which is so cool. But it was the kind of job that I definitely I feel like I wanted to happen, and then to discover that was an actual job was the big aha, to say, okay, I want to do these things, and then to discover like that's an actual job, and then actually have those things match was really exciting.
And you guys had a great time in Vancouver, and I know things are on hold right now, but I'm sure your adventures and travels will take you all over the world, and you'll be documenting it.
Yeah, it gave me hope that I can keep doing this as a job. A lot of people wouldn't see travel journalist on a job opportunity on LinkedIn, but I think somehow leveraging different things, my skill set and relationships, and just being open to new ideas at this time of the world with technology and the demand for content, I feel like things are lining up. So I'm excited that things are happening.
Completely. And even during quarantine, you've been pretty creative as well. I noticed you made a little short film. Tell us about that.
Oh yeah, it's funny because right now there's, it's interesting. The travel industry in general is hurt huge. We, as an industry, obviously we can't really go anywhere with the quarantine and with seeing people in person. That's just really, it's really unusual that like an entire industry is like suddenly kind of, I don't know. It's hard to say what's happening, but I would say that, like we talked about, is I'm optimistic that travel, there have been setbacks in the past and it always comes back. So we just need some patience, and soon, eventually, when it's safe, we'll all be back on those planes and experiencing, getting stamps on our passports. We just have a big setback in our place right now. And so for me to be home and just sit at the computer all day just sort of felt like lackluster, it just wasn't inspiring. And so one day I felt like really excited to make a short film here. There have been a few different kind of competitions I've seen also where you can make like a challenge to make content, make a video about quarantine. So I made a little piece. It's super fun. It's about a girl in quarantine who, by surprise, is able to discover the magic of travel without leaving her house. So for me, it was funny because I had all these little little breadcrumbs of travel around my house. I have photos and I have a couple little souvenirs here and there. And so those little things inspired me to throw a party. So a little adventure overseas to France. You know a thing or two about that, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you miss it? You must miss it tremendously.
I do, because I originally came to Vancouver when I saw you on a round trip ticket, and I was supposed to actually land back in Paris on Valentine's Day, Love Day. And just the way things were unfolding, it just made sense to be here. All my belongings are still in Paris, and I'm really grateful to be Canadian, to hold a Canadian passport, and our government is doing such a great job. I think I really support Justin Trudeau and so grateful for how he's taking care of Canadians right now. However, I can't wait to jump on a plane and, to pack up my life here and hopefully go back to Paris and go back to, last summer I was in Saint-Tropez and then I was on a plane to Uzbekistan, and before that in Cannes for the festival, and Lebanon, and, all of that, you know that. I want to
the magic of being in person with other people, right? We can't
yeah.
replace that. So I'm grateful we have technology like Zoom and we can keep in touch, and phone calls, texts, video, but I can't wait to see people IRL, right?
Completely. If you're just tuning in right now, I'm speaking to the amazing and inspiring Juliana Broste, founder of Traveling Jules. You can find her on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, you name it, and she's there. She is the winner of 10 Heartland Emmy Awards. I'm a big fan of hers. We met back in Uzbekistan. She was there for the World Influencers Congress. She's a travel journalist. She shoots, edits, and is also an inspiring speaker, TV host, and on-camera talent. We just have about 5 more minutes to go. I just want to pick your brain a little bit more. Tell me what it's like, in the world of social media. And I'll speak for myself, coming from starting out as a model, then getting into acting and TV hosting and having my own shows, and now with Instagram, like really blowing up. Of course, like I have, many days where I'm not looking at other people's Instagram and like getting into, judgment or anything like that. But however, being human and being a girl and, through Instagram, we can see what other people are doing. And one of the things that I hear from a lot of other girls, or whether someone's a Instagram content creator or a TV host or an actress, or doesn't even matter if they're in that field, one of my clients who's a designer, just saying that how it affects their self-esteem when it comes to, comparing. And there's this sense of like compare and despair, or feelings of envy can come up. Does that come up for you? And if it does, like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think now more than ever, the technology is here in our hands. So we are learning things that we never learned about, right? And to see it all in the palm of your hand every day, it feels like a lot. And so I agree with you. Some days I just need to turn that thing off. I'm not touching the phone. It's okay. But there is every day a digest of news. Obviously, in these times, there's a lot of news happening, and you feel this responsibility, and you feel like just a lot of pressure to put time and energy into that, and then you don't always get the energy back. It sort of disappears into the netherland. Just really, it's not always a recipe for success. So I believe we should be educated, and we do need to spend time doing a certain amount of focus on what's happening. But to keep peace of mind, I think it's okay to just turn your technology off, and you don't need notifications on everything, especially with social media. We really trust our friends, and to know we can easily have a lot more friends these days because of social media, and then we can see what they're doing. It's super easy to go, oh my God, they're having so much fun. I'm just doing boring stuff here, but I always remind myself too, and I struggle with it, but I do know that as much as we want these immediate results, right? We want thousands of likes now, and we need we need everything now. There is just this amazing magical thing about those long-term things. A lot of those things are not publicized. I mean, even right now, the conversation about posting what you post and what you don't post, I don't know if everything that we do needs to be posted. I have a lot of really amazing experience. I spend a lot of time with my folks, especially now with the quarantine. I don't post about it very often. They actually don't even like being in pictures. So, it's okay to have another life, and not everything we do is public on social media. And obviously, each social media lends itself to a different kind of story. Instagram is those beautiful photos, but yeah, where do those long stories about racial inequality go? Do they go on Instagram, right? Maybe because you have an audience, and also maybe it would be a better thing to write a long novel about. It's just everything has a pro and a con. LinkedIn has an amazing angle with all the business connections that you get to know a little bit more about people that maybe you want to get a job from, or you just want to keep in touch. You can find out a lot better information than people that were in our shoes 20 years ago who had no idea how to connect with these business contacts. So yeah, it's an interesting world to navigate with this much information, but to stay sane, we have to really figure out how to balance those things. And Zara, you asked me about my awards, which I appreciate, but it's interesting because we all have different measures on how we judge success. For some people, it's having 100,000 followers. And I'm jealous. I want 100,000. How do you do that? But for some, maybe it's winning awards. And for some, maybe it's helping out a nonprofit that you just volunteer your time. And you told a story that really just spoke to the content, that is a message that needs to be said. So I think there's a lot of different ways to succeed. You don't have to have a lot of followers to succeed. You don't have to have a lot of awards to succeed. But you need to do whatever is true to you. And for me, I told you I like to work hard. I like to do my best work. And so for me to have those awards, I think really honors and it's nice for me as assurance to go, oh, okay, other people thought that was good too. It was worth my time. It was worth those days with the backpack and the heavy equipment. But I don't necessarily think that it's a requirement, right? To do that. And once you have 1 or 2 awards, do you need to have like 5,000? I don't know. But is it good to have work that's good continually? Yeah, I agree. I like to have work that, I don't want to just like reach a top and then like die and like never make anything good again, right? So I do challenge myself to keep raising the bar. So I do keep entering, but I think yeah, I don't think necessarily if you entered and you didn't win, that doesn't necessarily mean you're no good. Because so the thing is, with Emmy Awards, they judge excellence, and they judge, one of the things they judge is creativity, your execution, and they also judge content. So those 3 things. But something that won the award last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it might not win an award today, because we're always pushing the envelope. And so I find it a great way to stay relevant with what's on TikTok and what's on Instagram. You can't just learn something and just sail with that. There's just a constant pattern of learning that just keeps happening.
Well, keep raising the bar. We will finish on that. Thank you so much. It was so lovely to talk to you. It was so lovely to catch up. Make sure to follow Juliana Broste on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. You can find her website, travelingjules.com. Once again, thank you so much, Jules. I know you as Jules, so thank you so much for taking the time. Keep raising the bar, folks. Keep traveling when we can. And we're pink. Like Jules, we're pink. Thank you so much. Until next time, I'm your host, Zara Durrani, and I'll see you here on Dash Radio and Ruckus Avenue Radio, North America's #1 South Asian radio station. Thanks for tuning in.